you can show that you were using it before,
but if I'm completely unaware that there is something going on there,
yeah,
on the patenting side,
right.
and they allot him the patent, and
well, what could happen is, so somebody else gets the patent, and then they might come to you and say, hey, you're infringing the patent.
right.
And you could say, well, I was practicing it before, which might help you. But in terms of getting your own patent, it's the first to file. So if you're practicing something, that's the encouragement, that's the incentive to get your patent application filed everywhere in the world.
If he's been already practicing it, then the other patent doesn't fit into the novelty thing because it's already there.
Correct.
So why would he even?
But in his example, maybe nobody knew about it.
He knew.
He knew about it, right? But the
doesn't-
patent office has to know about it because it's not novel. That's exactly true. Yeah.
In that scenario, if the case proceeds further, even he can go about post-grant opposition if the patent, the other patent which he's talking about, if it gets granted, he can oppose it later and nullify the patent of the other person.
Yeah. So in the
So there
United
are measures
States,
which we can restrict the other to operate.
Correct. And at least in the U.S., there is a post-grant procedure within 9 months. Now under the new America Invents Act, within 9 months you can challenge the validity of patent for any reason. So if like a prior use, you could go and challenge it. After 9 months, you can only rely on printed publications, some printed material to try to invalidate the patent. So yeah, that's correct. There are some vehicles of knocking out that patent if you come to know of it, too late. But really, you only have 9 months.
Is there any is there any safety clauses if you don't file a patent, but your design or has been infringed? How easy it is to litigate, and
You need to have the patent. You can't have infringement without the patent. Because what they do is that, the court looks at the patent claims, the claims at the end, remember 1, 2, 3, all the way to, and I pointed them out to you. What they do is they take the language of the patent claim and they compare it to the accused infringing product. And then they see, is there correspondence? So you have to have the patent claim before there is even an allegation of infringement.
squatter rights.
Yeah, right. So you have to have the patent, right?
So I have a question here. So suppose there are patents say 15 claims, and if the court finds out that okay, there are some 3 claims that have been violated. So is it a valid kind of infringement, or it's something
And each claim is separate. So you asked for you were talking about infringement, right?
Yes.
So if you infringe one, then that's enough. Then there's infringement, and then that can lead to damages and injunctions and those kinds of things. But there's no benefit of infringing 3 versus infringing 1. You need just 1, and then you get the rights. The flip side of that is if your patent is found to be invalid because of some prior use, okay, and you have 15 claims, it might be that the prior use only matches up to 12 of those 15 claims. And so you may escape with 3 claims still valid. So each claim stands and falls separately. Each independent claim stands or falls by itself. So that's why in the example that I gave, you see they went about patenting this service, this remote access service, software, in many, many different ways. So that even if there was some prior art that invalidated some of the claims, there are other claims, which I didn't even show you, that are even more narrow, that may survive.
So, does that result in the same patent staying standing, or it becomes a new patent?
Same patent.
Same patent stands,
Right.
but just the claims.
Yeah, they'll say those claims were invalid.
Okay, got it.
But the patent still stands, those claims are essentially kind of deleted.
In practice, see, the more you detail a patent, the more differentiators can be identified,
Yeah.
and that can be both a risk as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because then they can say it is similar in 10 of those attributes, but it is not similar in 20 of those attributes.
Just take 20 more years to.
It's a great question because it's a great. Your point is great because it makes Raghavendra and I smile because that's the art of drafting the patent. No, and that's exactly right. I mean, you've captured it, which is you want to be as broad as possible while still getting your patent through the patent office, right? And you want to draft it in a way that's forward-looking, like in the example that I gave you, and that's what comes with the experience from doing the patent drafting.
So how about just filing continuations? And so even if your patent does get invalidated due to some reason, you still have a continuation application going on, and you could claim something else from the same specification.
Yeah, you can, and many pharma companies in particular do that. But remember that the continuation application still has to be based on the original disclosure. So in a sense, I mean, you're not going to get some claim that's like completely unrelated. It's got to be related somehow to that disclosure of the patent. But yeah, I mean, that obviously takes money.
Yeah.
To keep doing that, you need to have big patent budgets. So it wouldn't apply to somebody who's just trying to get one patent on something. But really for big corporations who have large patent portfolios, absolutely, they do that. They almost never, especially on patents that cover very important products, they will always have a continuation pending because you never know what some smart person is going to do to try to get around your patent. And so if they do that, then you have a continuation where you can try to block them. And so that's right. That's a common strategy. Anything else?
So,
yeah.
Since you brought up this, it's expensive. How expensive is it?
Well, what are your continuation rules in India? Do you know?
We call it patent of addition in India.
Okay.
So that's continuation in part. That's part of the business.
Well, continuation in part in the U.S. has something new that you're adding, rather than just a continuation, which is based on the same original disclosure, gets the same filing date. It depends. I mean, the attorney time can be minimal if you know what the continuation should be.
No, I'm talking about general. What
the filing fees.
Filing fee for
the filing fees. I don't remember. It's a couple $1,000.
So a person has to go through a lawyer, or can he file it directly with the
you can. I mean, you can do everything yourself.
But you don't know how to do it. So
yeah. You know, it's like fixing your car. You can do it yourself. Very few of us these days do that, right?
If you're really serious, it's better to go through
a lawyer.
Yeah.
Because of a couple of things. I think one is one of the challenging things is to first of all figure out, do you really have an idea which is patentable? Yeah, so I think organizations which are really seriously into it will tell their employees that if you have an idea, share it with whoever the council is, and they will kind of guide you, help you, and do the patent search and stuff like that. And if they really find out that it is patentable, then of course the drafting and stuff like that. Because I think one is it's exhaustive, and secondly I think a typical employee doesn't really know about all these things. So it appears pretty simple when you're discussing it at a high level. When you really get into the act, then I think most people feel lost.
Yeah, so I think, just to add to that, I think the drafting is one part that takes a lot of experience. And as I've mentioned, there are certain best practices, right, that you want to cover your software patent in such ways. There's certain language that's used commonly, so those kinds of things. So where just the experience is helpful. And then the other aspect of it is the back and forth with the patent office. So you file your application. Generally what happens is the patent office will then respond and say no. And they'll have some problem with it. And then you've got to respond. And this can keep going back and forth. It can keep going as long as you pay more money. It can keep going. But generally it's only supposed to happen twice. And then at that point, the patent office either rejects the application or grants the application. Like I said, with the payment of more money, the patent office will do all sorts of things, and you can keep extending.
Well,
But
the payment of the more money to the patent office for every time you file.
After the second-
give a clarification.
after the second, yeah, you get two kind of back and forth, 2 rounds. But after that, yeah, then they want you to pay more. But my point isn't the fees. The point is that since you have 2 shots to do this, you want somebody who's knowledgeable when dealing with the patent office to be handling the case, so that you're not wasting money, with requests for continued examination and things like that.
Yeah, and your focus is the execution, right? So
Right. Right. Yeah, it's time. Well, that's the other thing. Is it's time consuming. So your time is worth something. That's not just merely kind of the cost of doing business. So that's right. That's a good point. Which is you should be thinking about the implementation of the software, not the patent.
So are you also saying that most of the times you get your patents granted without an RC being filed, as in the first two shots?
I didn't say that.
Then I'm cool. Thanks.
Just one question I have is what do we experience in the US in terms of software patent file? People, do they file for copyrights as well as patents, or they only file for patents these days?
Mostly patents, because again, remember the copyright claims the exact code.
Right.
But somebody could easily just switch the modules around. I mean, you can do the same as a software programmer. You can do the same thing. You can write it in a different language. You can.
Right.
I'm sorry.
But it takes some time.
It takes some time, right? So, I mean, there may be some marginal, marginal benefit. Let's take this remote access example again. Let's say that the code had been copyrighted, so that exact code could not be used. I think it's fair to say that an experienced software programmer, once this idea is described, using the server on the internet with a static IP address to do what I described, somebody's going to be able to program that, right?
Yeah, because there are 2 strategies in business. One is to delay a competitor.
Right.
So, in the copyright, I mean, suppose, like, let's say, a Harry Potter book.
Right.
Somebody rewrites a Harry Potter book with a few paragraphs changed.
Right.
Okay. Somebody who wants to really do a theft of the software will do it like that.
Agreed.
But there should be. It's easier to prove that the quantum of code that is written.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Is same as copied, and hence that is a far more fail-safe methodology. Whereas in terms of patenting processes and methods, what happens is, I think that is far more difficult to prove, because many people can think like say a maker and checker method in financial transactions. Now that has been a generic thing from the non-computer days as well. But just because you put a maker and checker concept into the software product, you can go and patent that. But really, it's very difficult for you to prove that what you copied was not what was there,
Right.
but what was there in existence from many years, even in the paper and pencil
Right.
accounts.
No, I think it's a good point. It's easier to prove copyright infringement. I think that's right. But I think it's very rare that people are just ripping off each other's copyright software. That may happen, but I think what you're seeing more of is somebody comes up with a concept, and then somebody else says, "Hey, you know what? That's a really nice concept. I'm going to do that also." And I mean, it's trivial these days. I think it takes more time. You're right. It does take more time rather than just lifting the code wholesale and using it. But within, I don't know, let's say a couple months, you can probably get an experienced team of software programmers to implement whatever concept you've seen. These days, that's pretty trivial. The other thing is, at least in the United States, the copyright damages are capped. So you're not going to get any real damages in copyright. Somebody else had a question, I thought. No question, okay. We're doing it. Ah.
Well, I just came up with it.
Okay.
Hypothetical question. So, either me or somebody has written a book, right, and listed a, process or some idea.
In a book.
Some detail.
In a book.
In a book.
Right.
And obviously, because he wrote the book, he or she, it's copyright, right?
Right.
Now, somebody else takes that concept and patents it. Can the original author claim that as an infringement?
A copyright infringement or a patent infringement?
I don't know. I mean, it's what it says.
Well, it's not a patent infringement because you don't have a patent.
Yeah.
Right? So remember what I said is you have to have the patent before there's a patent infringement. So it's clearly not a patent infringement. It's not going to be a copyright infringement either, assuming that what was copied isn't just directly taken. If it's just that concept that you disclosed in the book, then that person might be able to get a patent. But then you get back to the novelty issue, which is that patent that somebody else got may not actually be valid because you already disclosed that invention before. So does it give you rights? Maybe not, but it may block somebody else from getting the rights.
My wacky mind is thinking Da Vinci, Like he envisioned the helicopter, Did the helicopter inventor or question the novelty clause?
I mean, if you wrote a book in 1700 that disclosed the helicopter, then the person who has a patent on the helicopter wouldn't have been able to get the patent. But it wouldn't have necessarily given you any rights. It's just more like a blocking kind of thing.
I just want to add to this. Actually, this has happened in case of Wright brothers. When they had a machine, flying machine, right? The examiner said, Da Vinci has said it, that there is a flying machine there. So
right.
you have now the flying machine actually made. So it is already known. So this is really situation.
So I'm curious, so how was the patent actually?
So the thing is that, see, in copyright, you have basically copy as a right, right? Extra copy. If you copy something, you can prevent it. But in case of an invention or in a patent, you have technical features, right?
Right.
You cover the technical features. So in case of that patent of helicopter, I will try to cover the technical feature. Was there any engine in the Da Vinci helicopter?
Yeah.
There was an engine, right?
Right.
So another question.
Yeah.
So somebody is, for example, filed for a patent, and then there is a communication going on between the office and the guy. And then meanwhile, some other person also files it and gets it right the first time.
So what happens then?
So what happens?
The rule is whoever filed the patent first gets the patent. First to file. That's a global system now. US used to be first to invent. That has recently changed. So now it's a first to file system. So whoever gets to the patent office and makes their file first. We can finish. I had one other case study, but it's only a few slides long, so we can just finish and we can take more questions if they're informal.
Yeah, I think the discussion is more important.
Yeah, right. I agree.
Suppose there's patent filing in India.
Right.
And the patent filing in the US.
Right.
The fact that I filed a patent in India, can I use that to block patents filed in the US?
Yes.
Yes, very much. It's first to file.
So the reason I paused was because you didn't used to be able to, but after March 15th, you can.
So what happened?
The US changed this patent just 3 weeks ago.
So,
Yeah.
just to clarify this, anyone in any part of the world can file a patent and can block a patent getting filed or getting a person filing it in US
Yes.
today.
Yes. That's recent. Like,
Because
3 weeks ago.
I was under the impression that you had to file separately in every country.
Correct. You have to be careful the distinction between blocking someone else, and both of your questions were, you both used the phrase blocking someone else versus getting the right yourself. So I answered your question yes, because you can block someone else by filing, let's say you file a patent in India. You can prevent somebody from getting a patent on the same thing in the US. That doesn't mean that you have the right, that doesn't mean that you have the US patent. You still have to do that yourself. You still have to go and file in the US. Or you can do the PCT application, but
That's a procedural thing.
it's a procedural thing. You have to end up in the US one way or another to get the US right. But that's different from the blocking. By blocking, I'm saying that your application you file in India acts as prior art against the filer in the United States.
Now that raises a very important question. If there are two same patents, right, say related to this one click that you're talking about.
Yeah.
There was a one-click patent filed in India and one-click patent filed in US. Now, which supersedes the other?
Under the new rules, whoever files it first.
Really?
Right. Before that was not the case. Now now in the United States we have this global system where it's anywhere in the world whoever filed first.
But within 9 months, you can still block it.
Oh yeah, I mean the 9 months is after the grant. After the U.S. patent is granted, you have 9 months to challenge it by using anything. After the 9 months, you can still challenge it.
To the life of patent.
To the life of the patent,
by
you can
patent
challenge. You can
anytime.
keep challenging.
You can invalidate the patent anytime.
One more question
Yeah.
leading up from that.
Right.
From a practical point of view, is it important for businesses to file patents in India and follow it up with patents in the US as well?
Yeah, I mean, if you're an Indian company, you should be filing either in the PCT, which is the international kind of procedure, and then you can designate different countries. That's based on filing your patent application in India first.
I'd like to add.
Yes, of course.
Under the Indian patent law, any Indian company has to file a patent in India or seek a permission from the controller of patents to file a direct international application. So you cannot just go to the US and file it directly. You either file an Indian patent, wait for 6 weeks and file a US application, or seek a permission from the patent office, Indian patent office, and then go and file a US patent application.
Companies today are conglomerates having offices all over.
Yeah, that's the reason why the application is always filed in the US. They show that the applicant is a US company, not the Indian company.
The only difficulty which I find
Yeah.
where